All right. Got Javier Panama card here with Prime Quality TV. I just want to say thank you, man. It's an honor, to sit down and talk to you, man. I appreciate you, taking time to sit down and rap with me real quick, man.
Hey, man. First of all, I want to thank you too for even considering that my story is worth telling, right? And I feel honored that you want me to be part of your platform.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
I just want to, kind of get straight into it, man. Talk about, you originally from Panama, correct?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Panama. I migrated to the US in 1986 when I was 20 years old, going on 21.
So, talk a little bit about, Panama, and what part of Panama you from and like what it was like growing up there.
Sure. So like I said, I was born and raised here. So Panama is a very diverse country. For those that don't know, it's right between Colombia and Costa Rica. It's considered Central America. And why it's so diverse is because when they constructed the Panama Canal back in the early 1900s, it was a, a migration of West Indian people, really, who did the manual labor of the canal. They died by the thousands, sacrificed for what's known today as this great thing, right? Mainly Jamaicans and Bajans. And for example, my grandmother came from Martinique. So that's how kind of like blacks came here to Panama because it's really a Latin American country by way of the canal, and before that by way of slavery, right? To Spain and the rest. So my childhood here was pretty good. I don't have one of those third world country stories where most people, when they hear these stories from third world, they think about poverty and this thing. I mean, we wasn't rich, but I had the type of mother that I never needed for anything. We lived somewhat in the hood, and I was exposed to some of the variables in the hood, good and bad. But I didn't have the issues that some of my neighbors had, like they didn't have no food or they couldn't attend private school. That wasn't my issue. I was a Boy Scout. I played sports. I was on a roll when I really wanted something, and so forth. But I was still exposed to these things, and I was extremely attracted to the kids that was doing wrong. Right? For some reason, I always been was attracted to that type of thing, going against the grain. And I think it was kind of like a rebel in me, maybe being the only child, maybe because lack of father figure. Who knows, right? So many things that we could get into that might take all day. But I was a good student when I wanted to be. I would excel in school when I wanted to, but my issue was always misbehavior. And then one thing led to the next. I started getting into trouble as a juvenile. I started getting locked up for doing things I wasn't supposed to be doing, criminal activities with some of my friends. And like I expressed before on other interviews that I've done, in those days, not today, in those days, the way the government addressed delinquency or criminal activity was gunshots, and that was permitted, that was allowed. It was like an unwritten rule where the government could shoot you if they caught you in the commission of a crime. I myself got shot in doing something I wasn't supposed to do. Actually, it was a robbery, and I lost a lot of my friends before we turned 18. Because the government shot them. The bullet hit them in the back or the head, or vital places, and they died, and so forth. But that's not the only thing that describes Panama. Panama is diverse with so many different cultures. People come here to retire. There's a lot of opportunities, especially for foreigners to come invest. It's a lot of tourist places. It has over 300 islands. Panama is beautiful. It's just that, like in most of these countries and all over the world, there is a good and a bad to it. Yeah.
So, at what age do you feel like you talked about all the things you were involved in as a child. At what age do you feel like it maybe kind of started to shift and you started maybe going down the wrong direction?
I would say from when I was like in third grade. So in third grade, I got expelled. In those days, because I was born in 1965, so we're talking about the 70s. And then when I migrated to the US, we're talking about the 80s. But back to your original question, I believe in third grade. I got expelled, and in those days, it wasn't common for kids at that age to get expelled. You know, we misbehaved because things upbringing was a little stricter back then. You know, even in school, they'd take the rule out, spank you in your hand if you misbehave, and it was allowed. You know, that was those days. That's how the culture was. I got expelled for some type of prank I did on the teacher, and those type of behaviors kept escalating.
Mhm.
And then one thing led to the next. So I think when by the time I was in third grade, I was already like going against the grain,
Mhm.
against societal norms somewhat.
How was your like mom like kind of reacting to the change of your
Oh,
behavior?
God, look, she tried. My mom, God bless her soul. Um, she she tried everything. My mom was a good mom. Everybody gonna say their mom was a good mom, but I'm saying my mother was a good mother. My mother was a strong, independent Black Panamanian woman that never depended on nobody or no one aside from God
Mhm.
to get ahead in life.
Mhm.
So she tried to instill those values in me from early on. She placed a lot of importance on education and respect and all these things. But like I said, I was attracted to these things. So my mother, she used to whoop me. She used to punish me. She used to talk to me. She even took me to one of those people that read. She didn't know what to do at some point. So she tried everything. And I think when I became a teenager, she kind of, when I say teenager, I'm talking about 16, 17, she kind of like saw that at that point, it was like I was somewhat incorrigible,
Mhm.
you know? So yeah, she tried everything.
So what were like some of the I guess early, you don't have to like get too specific, but like what were like some of the earlier, I guess, like criminal activities you were doing, like starting off? Like were you like with friends doing these things, or was it like kind of things you were doing by yourself?
Yeah, so this is not something I want any of the young viewers to not misinterpret what we did, the criminal aspect of what we're going to talk about as if we glorifying it and we saying it's okay to do it. But it's important to address these things for them to understand how these things start and how they could escalate into something where you wind up with 113 years in the prison system.
Right.
So I started off, we started off like robbing tourists here in Panama, right? When I say robbing tourists, it's like somebody walking down the street, we know they're a tourist, we identify them as a tourist, we kind of like scan their pockets. I'm talking about with the eyes and see like the shapes and dip their hand in the pocket and run and stuff like that. Something that I'm not proud of today. Because we looked at tourists as if these were the richest people in the world, but now being mature, you're talking about hardworking 9 to 5 people that have their vacation time and say, let's go to Panama.
Yeah.
But we're looking at them because most of them were Caucasian or stuff like that. And we're looking at them like, well, that was the case. So we started with that. And the police, for that act in particular, like I mentioned to you before, they catch you in the act, they shoot you.
Mhm.
And that's how I lost most of my friends. So
Mhm.
it started with that, smoking weed, getting in trouble in school. My grades, it started affecting my grades. I wasn't on the roll anymore. I started skipping classes. Um, I started getting in all type of trouble. Next thing you know, I started getting incarcerated in the juvenile system. I got locked up so much that they kind of put me on a resident status. It's resident meaning you in and out all the time. And you could imagine my mom going crazy with all this madness that I'm doing. So it started off with that type of thing. The drugs didn't really come into play heavily till we migrated to the US, even though Panama always been talking about the bad things of the country, always been this place where drugs trafficking is
Mhm.
in and out because Colombia's next door and Canal, and so it's like a bridge with just not with just that, but with almost everything
Mhm.
because of where we located at. We the only country that connects the Atlantic and the Pacific, and that's the great importance of the canal.
You kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but like when you started getting involved in more, criminal activity, how did that impact the relationship with you and your mom?
It was. It was stressful. It put a strain on our relationship because my mom, she wasn't condoning that type of stuff. And some of the stuff that I was doing, this is the insane part about it. Some of the stuff that I was doing, I wasn't doing it because of necessity. I was doing it because it was just something deep within me that that made me want to do this. Like always to be against what's right, what's accepted. So it damaged our relationship a lot. You know, I put it through a lot. Put it through a lot. Yeah.
So you talked about how the police in Panama had pretty much kind of a green light whenever people were committing crimes to shoot to kill. Like how did like did that like put fear in you? Like doing the activity, doing the things that you were doing. Like especially you said you saw had friends who were killed as a result of that.
Uh, I hate to keep using the word insanity, but that's the only word I could use to describe why would somebody in their right mind continue to do something knowing that the outcome could potentially be that, and the probabilities of that happening are high, of that happening is high. But we kept going. I don't know, I kept doing it. I don't know, it was like an adrenaline rush. It was a dare thing. And you already know that a lot of these studies kind of demonstrate that when you at that age, you don't really weigh the consequences of things as an adult should. And that's not to be used as a justification or a crush, but it's a reality. It's a
Right.
scientific reality. So I think when we at that age, we dare devils. That's why we do so we so at risk.
Mhm.
So we kept going. We kept doing this stuff, bro. And it's like it was crazy because when somebody got shot, it was like a badge of honor. Like I got shot here, I got shot over here, and this one we was on the move over here, and we got shot. You know, it was insane. And more respect you got in that subculture, you know, for being such a daredevil. It's an upside down kingdom.
Can you walk us through, what the situation that led to you getting shot?
Oh, yeah, it was a robbery. It was some Colombians that came to Panama to do some business, and I we found out about it, and we went in to take what it was coming to do. But in the midst of that, some plainclothes officers were in the area, and they caught us like in the act. And as soon as they caught us, and then they realized what was going on, they just started shooting because we saw them, they saw us, we ran. And when you run, once they catch your neck and you run, they start shooting. So they start shooting. My friend got away because it was two of them. So one of them chased him and one chased me. My friend got away, but I got shot. I got shot in the leg, but it kind of touched one of my nerves. So it kind of like paralyzed my movement. So I dropped. And luckily, I dropped because the following shot, I think, would have hit me in my back or in the back of my head or something. So it was I could say it was God watching over me.
What was going through your mind when that you had just gotten shot? Did you think anything? Did you think you were gonna die, or like what was going through your mind?
No, I didn't think about death because I knew it was in the leg. I
Mhm.
was more so thinking about, you see, when someone is incarcerated, well, I'm gonna speak for me because I can't speak for everybody else. The first thing go through your mind is how I'm gonna get out. That's the first thing for me. So in that situation, I'm on the ground before they put me in the car and take me to the hospital. Whatever, I'm thinking, oh man, I'm jammed up. And I turned 18, so I was adult. So the juvenile run was over.
Mhm.
So I went into the adult system. So that's what I was thinking more. So like, I'm caught up in this situation.
So, at what point did you kind of like? Well, actually, what is it like? What are the prison institutions like in Panama? Like, what were those experiences like?
They're night and day compared to the US. I'm gonna speak about how it was then, and then I'm gonna speak about how it is now. So in the juvenile system, first of all, everybody had a bed. It was kind of like a dorm setting, and they had like different activities for the juveniles and stuff like that. So it was a little bit more humane in the juvenile system. In the adult system, that's where it kind of gets a little sticky when it comes to human conditions because you have X amount of people sharing one cell back in those days. Like for example, cell 18, cell 21, they're from my hood or a hood that we rock with, right? So all of us from that hood, we go in this cell. This cell only has like two beds. It's a small cell. It has two bunks, but we in there, we buy cardboards for 25 cents. We sleep on the floor. We do hammocks, but we all together in there. You know what I mean? But mainly it's because we only sleep there. And in the morning they open it and, you could be up and down the gallery. So that was the adult situation then. But then back in those days, they had an island that was a prison that's closed today. It's a tourist attraction now. It's called Coiba. Coiba, they sent you from the city, because I'm from the city, from Panama City. And Coiba was like, let's say, they use the example of the US, like going down south. But you went through ship in the water, and they put you on the ship and chain you up, kind of like take you back to the slavery days. That's the best way I could describe it. Not so intense like you under the deck. You're sitting in the deck, but you're sitting on the ground, and you take like 7 hours, 6 hours, probably less. And Coiba was an island where it had 9 camps. I went there. That's why I know. From that situation where I got shot. And there's only one of the camps that's called the central camp, where they have like a cell block setting. The rest of them are like barracks. And they have guards that watch the barracks. And in each camp, there's some type of production taking place. Like in this camp, it might be rice. In this camp, it might be sugarcane and so forth. So they take the prisoners, they're like 40 prisoners or more per barrack. And in the morning, early in the morning, you go into the bushes. Everybody has a machete, go into the bushes to cut grass, to do this, to do that. And they had these poisonous snakes. A lot of people died over there from that. So that was the situation. But because I was shot, I was sent to a camp that was a little bit less when it comes to labor, because it was people there that had like medical issues, even though they didn't really have infirmary or no real medical situation going on. But if you had suffered, it was, obvious illness or disability, then you were sent there. But because I was shot and I was on crutches, I was sent there, and the labor was a little less than. So that was the prison system then. Today, they built some new prisons. They have 500, 600 people on one block where it only has a capacity for 200. So it's the same madness. You have everything in there: guns, shootouts, you name it. It's insane down here, and it's a shame that in a country where that's generating over $1 billion from this canal, that the conditions are there are what they are today. Yeah, but it's rough.
You being from Panama, was was it was Noriega, was he the dictator around that time?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what was it like, being in a country that was under his dictatorship growing up?
But it boils down to what I was sharing with you initially about how the police used to deal
Hmm.
with criminal activity. If you're living in a country that's about democracy, it should be a process, right, that takes place. You commit a crime, I arrest you, I chase you, I arrest you. The only way I use my weapon as an officer, if you have a weapon and you pose some type of threat to me. Under his dictatorship, all you had to do was commit a crime and run when they say freeze, and that was enough for them to shoot you. And any political candidate or any political figure that went against him and what he stood for was also in trouble. There was a lot of stuff that happened under his dictatorship. Because he was involved in a lot of things. And when I went to the feds, I used to say to myself, if I run across this dude, I'm gonna stab him from the top of his head to his pinky for all my homies that got killed on this dictatorship. And there was a few Panamanians there and the federal joint with me, and they used to say, bro, talking about, man, if that dude would ever come here, leave that stuff alone, whatever and that. And I was like, nah, that dude, you know. Years later, as I started to mature, because I was compelled to mature in prison, I was compelled to
Mm-hmm.
grow up. I realized, and I said to myself, who was I to really judge him? When I was doing the same thing, just in a different way. You know what I mean? So I'm in no position to judge anyone. You know, but yeah, I was part of that regime. I was here when he was in power. I left in 1986. The U.S. invaded Panama in 1989 and got him out of Panama.